Welcome back to EtherLink AI Insights. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into something that's reshaping how enterprises actually deploy AI at scale. We're talking about Agentic AI in production, and spoiler alert, this is way more complex than just running a chatbot. Sam, thanks for joining me today.
Happy to be here. And you're right, this is the conversation everyone should be having in 2026. We've moved past the "can we build this" phase into "how do we manage this responsibly while it's actually making business decisions?" That's a fundamentally different problem.
Exactly. So let's set the stage. Gartner's data shows 67% of enterprise architects now see multi-agent orchestration as critical. That's a 34% jump from just last year. Why the sudden urgency? What changed?
The realization that single-agent systems hit a wall pretty fast. When you've got an AI agent managing procurement, it's not just answering "what are my options" anymore. It's evaluating vendor quotes, checking budget allocations, running compliance checks, generating purchase orders, all in one workflow. You can't do that with a chatbot architecture. You need orchestration.
So the shift is from AI as a tool that answers questions to AI as something you actually delegate authority to. That's a big mental shift for organizations. But it also means you're suddenly dealing with governance, compliance, all these moving parts working together. How are companies even thinking about that?
That's where it gets interesting. And honestly, where a lot of organizations are still figuring it out. The EU AI Act compliance piece isn't optional anymore. When you're running agentic workflows, you're not just deploying a model. You're deploying a system that makes decisions across your enterprise. You need audit trails. You need failure isolation. You need to prove the thing is actually reliable before it touches real data.
Let's talk about the architecture itself. I know there are different ways to orchestrate these agents. You mentioned hub and spoke versus mesh. Can you break that down for our listeners who might be implementing this?
Sure. Hub and spoke is simpler conceptually. You have a central orchestrator, think of it like a traffic controller, that routes tasks to specialized agents. Works great for linear deterministic processes. Invoice processing, compliance checks, that kind of thing where the workflow is mostly predictable.
And mesh is the alternative?
Right. Mesh architectures let agents talk to each other directly through APIs rather than everything funneling through a central point. More flexible, better for dynamic scenarios. Imagine a customer service system where you've got agents handling inquiry classification, FAQ retrieval, sentiment analysis, escalation routing. Those agents need to collaborate in real time, not wait for a hub to coordinate every step.
I can see why mesh is appealing, but doesn't that create complexity? More connections means more potential failure points, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that's where evaluation and monitoring become critical. You can't just deploy a mesh architecture and hope it works. You need mechanisms to catch failures in one agent before they cascade through the system. You need audit trails so when something goes wrong, you can trace exactly what happened and which agent was responsible.
This brings us back to compliance. The EU AI Act isn't just a regulatory checkbox. It actually drives your technical architecture decisions. How does that actually work in practice?
It's a forcing function, honestly. The Act requires you to document decision-making processes, maintain auditability, prove the system is safe before deployment. That means you can't have black box orchestration. Every agent needs clear responsibilities. Every handoff needs to be logged. Every decision path needs to be traceable. It sounds like overhead, but it actually makes your systems more robust.
So compliance and technical excellence actually align here.
Exactly. The organizations that take compliance seriously end up with more reliable systems anyway. They think about failure modes earlier. They invest in monitoring and evaluation. They build with observability in mind. That's all good practice, regardless of regulation.
Let's talk about evaluation, because that seems like a critical piece people don't always talk about. How do you actually prove that an agentic system is ready for production?
That's the million-euro question, and there's no standardized answer yet. But what we're seeing in production deployments is a multi-layered approach. You're testing agent reliability individually. Can this agent consistently perform its specific task? Then you're testing orchestration. Do agents fail gracefully? Do you have timeout mechanisms? Can the system degrade predictably if one agent goes down?
So it's not just about accuracy on a benchmark. It's about reliability in a system under real conditions.
Correct. You're also running what we call compliance checks. Does the agent output comply with regulatory requirements? Does it respect authorization boundaries? Have you thought through what happens if an agent gets compromised or makes a decision that violates policy? That's not traditional ML testing, it's systems thinking.
I imagine that's labor-intensive. How are teams actually managing this at scale?
A lot of automation, honestly. You're building test harnesses that simulate failures. You're using synthetic data to stress test workflows. You're instrumenting your orchestration layer to capture metrics about agent behavior. And you're probably starting smaller, proving the approach works with lower stakes processes before you give agents access to critical systems.
That sounds like a measured approach. What about the MCP protocol agents that were mentioned in the blog? What role do they play in this picture?
The Model Context Protocol is essentially a standardized way for agents to communicate with tools and each other. Instead of every agent having custom code to call specific APIs, MCP provides a common interface. That reduces coupling, makes orchestration simpler, and actually helps with compliance because you've got standardized communication patterns you can audit and test.
So standardization is a feature, not a limitation.
Absolutely. When you're running mission-critical workflows, standardization reduces surface area for bugs and makes security easier to reason about. You're not dealing with dozens of one-off integrations. You're dealing with agents that all speak the same protocol.
Let's zoom out for a moment. We're talking about 2026, and organizations are moving from proof of concept to production. What's the biggest mistake you're seeing teams make in that transition?
Underestimating the governance piece. Teams get excited about agent capability. They've built something that works in a test environment and they want to deploy. But they haven't thought through who's responsible when things go wrong. They haven't documented decision-making logic. They haven't built the monitoring systems that compliance requires. Then they hit production and realize they're flying blind.
So it's not a technical failure, it's an organizational one.
Exactly. The technical challenges are mostly solved. We know how to build reliable agentic systems. The challenge is building the organizational practices, governance, monitoring, incident response, that let you run them safely. That's less sexy than AI breakthroughs, but it's what actually determines success in production.
What's your one piece of advice for teams starting this journey right now?
Start with orchestration clarity. Before you worry about agent sophistication, before you optimize for speed, make sure you can draw a clear diagram of how agents interact, where decisions are made, who's accountable for what. That diagram becomes your security model, your compliance model, your troubleshooting model. Get that right first, then build the rest.
That's solid. For listeners who want to dig deeper into this, we're talking multi-agent orchestration patterns, EU AI Act implications, evaluation frameworks. The full article has way more detail. Head over to etherlink.ai and check out Agentic AI in production, orchestration, compliance, and evaluation. Sam, thanks for breaking this down.
Thanks for having me. This is the conversation that matters right now. Organizations that get this right will have a massive competitive advantage in 2026.
Great insight. Thanks to everyone listening. This is EtherLink AI Insights. We'll be back soon with more on how AI is actually reshaping enterprise operations. Thanks for tuning in.